and welcome to the Mad Madam Mel podcast. This is a podcast primarily about knitting and spinning and other fibre related stuff. I think we're on to episode 5 now. My name's Mel and I live with my husband and animals and kitties on the Orkney Islands off the north coast of Scotland. If you go to Scotland and keep going a bit further, you'll find us. We've got a few things to get through today. I haven't podcasted in a few weeks now. I meant to recently, but it's just been weather and business and renovation work and so on. Speaking of which, if you hear any like bangs and clatters and grinds, my husband's at home today and he's doing quite a bit of construction work, so if it gets too bad I will pause the recording and come back and carry on when he's stopped doing the noisy bits. We live in quite an old cottage, as you can. I've changed my location of where I'm filming today. Usually I film sitting on the sofa, but we've got stuff on the sofa, so I have a lot of yarn ready for Etsy updates, ready to go, and it's in a bag on the sofa and it looks a mess. So I've turned my camera around slightly, so I actually got my fireplace behind me. And oh yeah, and I botanically dye yarns. I botanically hand dye yarns, even sock yarns and such like, on Etsy. So that's what I do, and that's why I have rubbish everywhere, or yarn everywhere, or dye and fibre and all sorts everywhere. So anyway, so we have an old cottage and we're still renovating it. We've been living here about 8 years now, so it's just taking time, and with John's work and my business and all that sort of, and just running a household, all those sorts of things. So things take time. So that's why he's working on it today whilst the weather's really nice. It's so nice, it might be ice cream weather. So let's get past that and get on to the fibre stuff. So I have a couple of finished objects today. One of which I recorded in the past, and I'll explain why in a few minutes. But first, my first finished object I'm actually wearing, and it is, of course, a Carbeth cardigan. My first full-sized garment knitted for myself, and it's black, so you can't really see it very well. But I will insert some photos somewhere around here which show it better, and I took photos outside where you can actually see it a bit better. I needed a black cardigan, and there's just no way I'm knitting a fingering weight black cardigan ever, I don't think, unless I completely ran out of every other thing I ever wanted to knit would I knit a finger weight black cardigan. But chunky weight, that I will do. So yes, everybody's been knitting these. Well, not everybody, but lots of people are knitting these. And of course it's the Carbeth cardigan by Kate Davies. And I haven't changed a lot, but I have changed quite a bit of how I've done the construction. So if I haven't already inserted photos, I will insert them here first. And if I've already done them first, then that was a complete pause for a waste of time. But, so what I've done different. What I've done is I've made it 3/4 sleeve. And the cuff is, I don't know if this is going to show on camera, but the cuff is sort of 2 inches long. Whereas on the original one it comes all the way to the sleeve, and they've got quite a long cuff that's folded back. I've just used the Drops Eskimo yarn, 100% wool, and that's colourway 02, which is just black basically. And just some buttons from my stash. The only thing I changed was, no, I changed 2 other things. I made it slightly longer because it is a cropped cardigan. It's supposed to come to sort of like the bottom of your rib cage, and I like cardigans that sit sort of just where your hip crease is, so it looks nice with like a vintagey style dress, but also looks pretty good with jeans. I don't like them too long, cardigans, and I don't like many I have a cropped-ish sweater that I quite like to wear, like a summery one, but I don't like my cardigans cropped. And the other thing I changed was the collar. Now on the original design the collar is really high, well it's quite high, and it's doubled over. It's knit in rib and then doubled over and attached like a 3-needle bind off on the inside, so you get this double thickness. And because this yarn is a bit thicker than the original design, I didn't want it to be too bulky, and I've got quite a short neck, and I didn't want it up around my neck. I want so it sits quite nicely, just kind of where my top or my dress, whatever I'm wearing, is finishing, which is quite nice, and it just leaves nothing on my neck. I don't like lots of stuff on my neck, and if my neck's cold, then I'm going to wear a cowl or a shawl rather than a cardigan that goes up, and I have no option then of having nothing on my neck. So I think I'll be taking this off in a few minutes because it's quite warm. I completely changed the construction of the order of which it was knitted though. It's supposed to be knit bottom up, and the sleeves knit bottom up, and then all those bits attached, and then the yoke knit up, and then the collar, also the button band, and then the collar. But it's all constructed all bottom up. I didn't want to do that, so I wasn't sure how much yarn it was going to take, and because I was extending the length, I didn't know when I would need to, how far I would have to knit before I then started the yoke and so on. So instead I did a provisional cast on sort of below the bust line and knit upwards, and then knit the sleeves provisional cast on for about 4 inches down and knit those up, both of those, and then attach those, and then knit the yoke upwards. Then when all that was done, I've left everything on the cable needles, as I knit the length down to what I wanted, and I knit the sleeves down to the length I wanted as well, because I wasn't sure how to calculate how many stitches I would need initially with starting the sleeves here rather than here. So instead I've knit that one up and then knit down from there so the sleeves are the length that I want, and I'm really happy with it. It fits nice. The only thing I would change would be I would put a bit of waist shaping in the back. The majority of the time I imagine I'm going to wear this open. I like to wear cardigans either open or sort of I'll try and stand up, not the camera, kind of held beneath the bust like that. This is just showing all my cleavage on camera, I do apologise. With like and I would only really wear that if I was wearing a dress, so you get that vintage dress and that nipped in kind of twin set look in the cardigan. But still, even with it pulled in, it's got a little bit of slouch in the back, in the waist area, so I would put a bit of waist shaping in, because the design originally is supposed to kind of hang A-line style and be cropped, so you wouldn't need waist shaping, but with changing it I should have put waist shaping in. But this is only my second cardigan. The first one isn't finished yet, but that's got waist shaping in it, but this is the first completed one. So now, with hindsight and with experience, I'll know waist shaping in a cardigan. But other than that, I really like it. The weather hasn't really been cold enough to wear it since I made it. Well, it was yesterday, but it was dark and it was dreary and it was wet, and I wasn't going outside anyway, so it was casual clothing. So I'm going to take this off now. I've gone all quiet. Kitties are asleep for now, but they might want to come in. So, second finished object. I think I knit that on 7mm needles and 6mm needles for the ribbing, which I think is a needle size. Is that a needle size smaller or larger than the original? I'm not sure, but I knit quite loose, and that is a chunkier weight yarn. It's supposed to be chunky, but that's slightly chunkier. So all I did was I calculated it out. I knit a swatch and worked it out, and I knit, instead of knitting one of the larger sizes, which is what I would normally do with a pattern, as I knit the second size knowing that when it was knit up with that stitch count, it would be big, it would be the right size for myself, and it fits perfect. So I'm really pleased with it. And I was really surprised at how well that worked out, just because my mum knits, but she never knits a swatch, which kind of horrifies me. Maybe because my gauge is always completely different to what the advised gauge or whatever it is on a pattern, but if I'd knit that without a swatch, it would have been huge, unwearable, and I wouldn't have had enough yarn either. So second finished object is a sock. Well, it's not a sock, it's a pair of socks, and these are not blocked because these have been worn, because they were finished whilst I was away at at Edinburgh Yarn Festival, but they were being worn when I recorded last, and besides it was more of a haul podcast last time. So, and that's these socks, let's see against there, that's a bit better, and these, I also have a vanilla sock on the go, and these were the vanilla socks I was finishing off whilst we were travelling on holiday with my mum. I went to Edinburgh Yarn Festival, and then I travelled to my mum's, and then we spent a week travelling around. I mentioned it in the previous podcast, and I wasn't driving because I'm not insured for mum's car, so she did all driving, and whilst she was driving I did lots of knitting on these socks, which was nice when I wasn't navigating. So I used Mothie and the Squid, her hand dyed yarns. So this is a superwash merino nylon blend, and the colourway for the main body of the sock is called Iced Gingerbread, and when she first brought this out and put it on Instagram, I was like, oh, I have to have it. It was one of her Christmas ones this past year, and it's alternating. It's at one end of they're in mini skeins, so they're quite narrow bands, and one half of the skein is like a brown, and then the other half is this speckled, and it's just gorgeous. And I did the toes and heels in chocolate cake, which is not quite the same shade of brown, but almost, because the chocolate cake is like a it's like a semi-solid tonal. And I had 2 mini skeins of the iced gingerbread and 1 mini skein of the chocolate cake. So I knit the toes and knit the sock and did the heels, heel flap and heel turn, I never remember which were on the heel turn and heel flap, no, heel, whatever, in the chocolate cake, and then I knit whatever I had left up both socks 2 at a time for the last part. So I used almost every scrap of yarn, and then I used the chocolate cake to knit the cuff 2 at a time on the 2 socks, and used every scrap of that yarn too. So it's knit a full pair of socks. There was 60 grams for the pair, so there were 20 gram skeins, so 2 20 grams of the iced gingerbread and 1 20 gram skein of the alternating yarn. And I have quite large feet, so anybody with I take like a size 8 UK size. I'm not sure what that is American size. I think it's like an American man's size 8. I don't know what it is in women's size. The only reason I know that is because of my roller derby skates are a men's US size, and I don't know what that is European. I think it's 41, I think 41 or 42. So I have quite large feet, and I've got quite broad feet. So anybody who had smaller feet than me, you would have like a longer ankle, and truthfully I would have preferred a longer ankle. I have some more mini skeins. I'm knitting up another pair of socks at the moment, and I don't think I'll use 20 gram mini skeins again. If my alternating colour was 25 grams, that extra 2.5 grams on each sock would be just perfect, because these are a bit shorter, only a little bit shorter than how I normally like a sock. I like mine to be maybe an extra ½ inch longer, probably. So it's not a lot, but it just feels slightly different to wear them. Otherwise, I'm really pleased with them, and I do love Mothie and Squid's colourways. She has beautiful. I mean, I hand dye sock yarns, and hers are just gorgeous. You know, I love my own, obviously, but I also love hers. And she's actually a Scottish based dyer as well. I think she's based in Glasgow. And I use my usual vanilla sock pattern for this, my go-to, and that is, I did have it to hand. I have still got it to hand somewhere. Yeah, because I've got another pair on the go. The pattern is, there it is. It hasn't got a fancy name. It's this one, which is, I'm gonna have to try and read it. It's vanilla sock with gusset and choice of reinforced heel by Jo Tor. There isn't the pattern on the front, so it's fine. And it's in black and white because it's just for myself. And it's just a basic vanilla sock pattern. And it's a toe up. It has a gusset. It has, I've done heel stitch on the heel turn. And eye of partridge, whoops, on the heel flap. The bit at the back of the heel. And a 1x1 rib with stretchy bind off on the top. And the only thing I'd change, other than doing the 1x1 rib, I think the pattern might be 2x2 rib, whatever. And I do a Turkish cast on for the toe, which is my go-to for toe up socks, and it makes a really neat finish because it's invisible. So that's my second finished object. And I think there's a cat trying to come in, so I'll just be a moment. She'd already got tired of waiting, she'd already gone back outside. But okay. So my third finished object is actually going to be shown by Mel in the past, because I crocheted, so it's not knitting, it's crocheted, a shrug for my mum for Mother's Day. And because I was going on holiday with her after Edinburgh, I recorded it before I went away, whilst I was recording the podcast before going away, but I couldn't upload it and put it on the video in case Mum saw it before she got her present. So I've recorded it in the past, and I can't remember now what's actually said on it, but it's crocheted, it's a mohair blend yarn, and it's a big one you'd wear like over like a dress. It's like a lacy thing. You'll see in the video anyway. So that video should be coming up right about now. Okay, this is Mel from the past, recorded during the previous podcast. This is an item I'm adding in. I couldn't add it to the last podcast because my mum might see it before I gave it to her. But I made her a shrug, a crocheted shrug. This came out my UFO pile. I was working on this a bit back, and for some reason I don't know why it got stopped. I must have gotten distracted and started another project or something, and it sat in a project bag in my UFO basket for a while, and Mother's Day's just come and gone, so I thought I would make this for her. And I'm supposed to be going on holiday with her this week coming, which is probably several weeks ago now. I thought it made sense to make it, although it's now going to be waiting at home till she comes up here on holiday the week after we come back, because I won't have room in my case for it. But there we go. So I crocheted, if I can get it the right way up, this shrug. There we go. And the armholes are here, and they've got little peacock edges on the sleeves. And it's crocheted in two sections, two big triangles, and then they are seamed up the back, and they're kind of folded over on each other, on itself rather, each triangle, to make the sides. And this is a wool mohair blend of yarn, and I finish it in an evening. I don't know why it's been sitting at the bottom of my basket, but it has. And I haven't got the label of the yarn to hand, but I'll hopefully put it on screen of what it is. It's some random one I picked up years and years ago. You probably can't get it anymore, it's probably discontinued, but it is a wool mohair, and it's quite simple. It's just like let me open it out again. It's like a lattice work. It's basically lots of chains and little fans made out of 5 trebles, and the pattern, you can't get it basically, I'm sorry about that. It was part of Practical, that would be my husband and home, Simply Crochet magazine or Practical Crochet magazine, something like that. And I can't remember because I took it, the foldable on magazines, to the charity shop, and I just kept back a couple of the pages that I really wanted to make the patterns for, which is only a couple of them, and one of them obviously was this because it wasn't finished. We have a creaky floor. So yes, that is another finished object coming to from Mel in the past, from the previous podcast, to Mel in the future. Hopefully we'll have some more information, but there we go. Okay, so that's 3 finished knitting and crochet objects. But I do have some whips, and then we'll be getting on to spinning, because I have actually done some spinning since I last podcasted, which is nice. It's just, I love knitting, but sometimes I keep staring at my wheel, like I really want to spin something, and I've got fibres ready to spin. It's just finding the time to do it, because it is quite time consuming spinning. I tend to do 2 things at once, so I can knit and watch TV, and we're watching Vikings right now, and can I just say, I can't believe it took me this long to start watching Vikings, because it is excellent. And spinning, I can spin and watch TV, though it tends to send my husband to sleep, which is not so good when we want to watch something together. I like watching podcasts like, is it Camabonia? God, I probably said that wrong, podcast, because it's in Swedish, I believe. I have the subtitles on, obviously, and I can read the subtitles at the same time as spinning, but I can't knit and read the subtitles very well because I tend to look at my work too much and I'll miss bits. But spinning, I can spin without looking, so I can watch podcasts with subtitles then. So I don't have, or I can watch a movie, but you know, I don't tend to when I'm spinning and knitting at the moment. So before we get on to spinning, I'm going to go through the whips I have for knitting, and I haven't got many on the go at the moment. I'm trying to reduce them down. I don't have many. There are 2. They're not exactly in hibernation, but I'm not actively working on them right now. They haven't been hibernating for a long time. I'm just not working on at this moment. One of them is my fern leaf shawl, which I didn't get finished in time for Edinburgh Yarn Festival, so I haven't touched it since I've come back. I can't really work on it when watching some TV that I want to really get engrossed in, because it's all chart work. It's supposed to be intarsia, but it's kind of semi-intarsia design, and I struggle to follow the chart. I've made 1 or 2 mistakes already. I've had to rectify on that, and whereas something that's a bit chunkier with colour, it's not so bad. So I've not been working on that, and there is, I think there's one other item, I can't what it is, that I'm also kind of, it's semi-hibernating. So my whips, current ones I'm actively working on, I have, first of all, a pair of vanilla socks, because I like a pair of vanilla socks on the go, in the car, or not in the car, but to take in the car, for when my husband's driving and I'm not. We have a Airbnb, but it's an hour's drive from home, so toing and froing from that, I get some knitting time in, unless I'm driving, obviously, then I'm not knitting. But if my husband's going to, then I can knit. So I'm knitting another pair of vanilla socks, exactly the same pattern as the previous pair, different yarn obviously, but this one is also mothly in the squid yarn, and this was my souvenir sock yarn I got from Edinburgh, and so far I have knit partway on 1 sock, and I am past the heel, so I'm about to start going up the ankle, and the toe is in the colourway Ruby Tiger Moth, which I don't know if I can get the colour right. That's about right. It's like a burgundy colour, and like a winey burgundy. It's definitely on the the purple side rather than on the maroony side. And the body of the sock is in another one of her ones she brought out for Christmas actually, and I did love it at the time, and it's called Advent. And it's not going to show up on camera. No, it's not, but it has actually, a little bit. It's got sparkle, a little bit of sparkle in the main body yarn. And again, I bought two 20-gram skeins of the yarn for the body of the socks, and one 20-gram skein for the toes and heels. Now, I hadn't finished the other socks when I bought this, so I didn't know I would have preferred that little bit more yarn, but it's still going to make a pair of socks. My cast on, I'm trying to think how many stitches I use. I have quite big feet, although I'm starting to wonder whether I should reduce my stitch count down and have more negative ease in my socks, possibly. But when I swatched for the ice gingerbread ones, or rather when I was knitting the ice gingerbread ones and I made it to the same size as I would normally knit a sock, I wasn't keen on the way when you wear them the stitches look more open because it's a superwash merino, whereas something like the Heart and Soul sock yarn that you buy, like a commercial sock yarn, tends to be that bit fluffier, I guess, so you don't see the gaps as much. My stitch count for my socks, my cast on, once I get past the toes, I have 68 stitches, which is quite a lot. But I knit these on a 2.25mm needle, which I believe is a US size 1. I'm quite loose knitter, so I tend to have to go down a needle size, and I'm just using my my Symphony needles, Knit Pro or Knit Picks, I believe, if you're in America. Oh, I've dropped me on. So those are my first whip, and so I've always got a vanilla sock on the go, although there's a few patterns I want to try, so I might be branching out a vanilla sock pattern whilst travelling. I like, it's easy to do whilst travelling, to do a vanilla sock, but I imagine with just a wee bit of pattern in it wouldn't be too bad. And these were an excellent buy. I got a pack of 4 of these little floral zipper pouches from Amazon. I think they're supposed to be, I don't know, cosmetic bags. They came as a pack of 4, and it was like, I don't know, £12 or something. Perfect size for sock travelling. That's my first whip. Yes. Which reminds me, I've just remembered I have another finished object, but it's not for me. My sister she knits knitted accessories, which she sells. Her online presence, whatever you want to call it, is Drifting Gypsy on Instagram, and Drifting Gypsy Woolcrafts, or Drifting Gypsy's Woolcrafts on Facebook. I think she mostly sells through Facebook. But she's got her first stall at a festival this year, next month actually, in June, and she asked me if I would make some socks for her stock. She needs to make lots and lots of items to go on this stall, and I got volunteered to knit socks. So I'm knitting these in her yarn that she knits all her stuff with. So she knits all hers in acrylic. So nice and easy to wash these are. But I've got 2 pairs of these socks. There's actually 2 socks there, but I fastened them together. And these are done in James C. Brett Marble Chunky. And I have to pick up a different colour of yarn for her tomorrow, from her tomorrow even, because I've knit 2 pairs of these already, and I'm getting rather tired of knitting them. Quite quick. I mean, it is a chunky yarn, so I'm using 5mm needles for this, and I've just made up my own pattern basically based upon how I would normally knit a vanilla sock. So Turkish cast on, gusset, actually a short row heel rather than a heel flap, but with a gusset in there. and 1x1 ribbing, stretchy bind off, blah blah blah. Plain knitting the rest of the body of the sock, and one pair is slightly bigger than the other. So yeah, that was another finished object I've just remembered, which I don't know how I missed because they're right beside me. Back to whips. My second whip and my main knit for me at the moment is to finally finish, or keep working on and hopefully finally finish, my gnarled oak cardigan. And the pattern is by Alana Dacos of Never Not Knitting, and it is this pattern here, which is the gnarled oak, and it's it's just a plain cardigan, and it's got like a cable design in the yoke, and it's very pretty. And I'm doing the 5th size, and so far I've got this far. It's been in hibernation for, I don't know, at least a year, and I picked it back up for Edinburgh. I think I took it away with me to Edinburgh. Yeah, I took it away to Edinburgh. Oh, I took it away for the holiday after Edinburgh, and it's bottom up, which I have to say I'm not enjoying, and I'm not keen on the where the increases and decreases for the waist shaping are taking shape. Knowing now I've got a bit more knitting experience and I've kind of learned how to make them look a little bit more invisible, I can't really go back and do them. And I got really bored of knitting back and forth, so I started knitting in the round. So I'm gonna have to steek this, which is probably not the best idea because it's quite a slippy yarn, but hey. And the yarn I'm using is it's this one I can't pronounce. Sashenmeier. No idea. If anyone can, it's supposed to be, hang on, is it made in Romania for coats, Germany. So if anybody can read German, anybody who's German or watches the podcast, the only German podcaster I know will unlikely be watching my podcast. So, but Sashenmeier maybe, extra merino, and it is supposed to be 100% virgin wool, and I imagine it's not all merino. It's definitely got quite a bit in it, but I don't know how much. I don't know what the percentage is. It just says with merino, and it is in colourway 311, which I believe is called Almond. And like it says, I am quite away now. I've knitted it's about a foot in length, and this is another mindless one. I can do this in front of the TV when I'm not knitting Charlotte socks, and it's going to be really nice. It's a funny colour. I've started calling it my butterscotch cardigan, but it was dubbed the baby poo brown cardigan, but I keep calling it butterscotch, and it's going to be a nice neutral-ish cardigan. So I need to crack on with that, but it's double knit and it takes much longer than chunky yarn, obviously. But that is my second whip, and that one's been knit on again symphony needles, and I think, I'm not sure what size, because the sizes rub off on these things, and I can't remember what size I'm using, but it's definitely smaller than the pattern calls for. And my third whip is kind of not a whip. It is, but it's not, and I'll explain why. I've been swatch knitting. I want to make the Orland cardigan, or I want to knit a cardigan with the Orland design. I'll find a colour photo without showing the pattern. I'll try. I'll see if I can. That will do. Let me see. It's like it's got like a, I think it's Swedish floral yoke design. So I've been swatch knitting. This is going to be tricky because it's still attached to the balls of wool, because I always rip out my swatch knitting for things like this. And I've only got a wee little one pattern repeat, and it's starting to bunch because I've got all the strands at the back. but you get the idea. I'm pretty pleased with it. It looks really, really nice, and it's kind of half in one colour and half another. The white background here is extra white, and the white background up here is natural undyed white, because I wasn't sure which one I wanted to use, but I've decided I'm going to go with the bright white. It's really spring-like, because like green and yellow, and there goes my wool, and white. It looks really, really bonny. And this has been swatched in, and what will be knitted in is, it's the Drops Nepal, and I'll better tell you the colourways, possibly. Right, we've got, I don't know which one's which. Anyway, the white is in white, really white. The yellow is called Goldenrod, and the green is called Olive Mix. And they're all Drops Nepal, so that's 65% wool, 35% alpaca. And I really like it. It's got a lovely feel. When you hold a ball, because I've got Drops Alaska yarn as well, and that's just wool, and you feel them, you're like, I can't decide which one feels softer, you know, if you hold it against like your neck or something. But when you knit it, it's definitely smoother with the alpaca, and just lovely, because I have actually got another swatch in here, this bag somewhere. Yeah, and that's just done in Drops Alaska. It's like part of a swatch, you can't really see it. And that one I'm swatching for the, oh, what's that one called? Arboreal. That's the Arboreal by Jennifer Steinglass. And I'm going to do that, instead of doing it in double knit, I'm going to do that in iron weight. Possibly, probably, because I've got yarn that I didn't have a use, I didn't have anything earmarked, it hadn't got a pattern it was earmarked for, and it's this kind of like a light beigey brown and this natural white, and I was swatching for that as well. And you feel that, and then I feel the swatch in the Nepal, and I really like that. That's really nice. So I'm swatching for that, but I'm going to use the chart for the Orland and the overall look of it, but I'm going to use the I'm going to combine it with the pattern for this one, which is the Wintersol by Jennifer Steinglass, which I have the yarn to make as well. But this apparently has got some really, it's got interesting shaping in this particular sweater, and I'm going to knit it in the round and steek it. It's got shaping that's short raw shaping that's in the body rather than in the above the yoke, it's below the yoke, and I'd like to try and test it out. It sounds quite good, sounds interesting, sounds going to work really well. And I will put waist shaping in it. I'm not sure, I don't think the Orland has waist shaping in it normally in the pattern. So I'm going to take this one and put this one in it somehow. So I've got lots of calculating to do, but that will be my next big item, which is kind of not an mindless knitting. The butterscotch one's mindless. This one won't be mindless till I get past the yoke section, because this one I think you're supposed to knit bottom up. This one is knit top down, so I can do all the yoke part, and then once I get on the body we're on to mindless knitting, and hopefully by then I'll have finished the mindless knitting on the butterscotch cardigan, and then I'll be on to the non-mindless knitting bit of the cabling at the top. So I'll always have some sort of thing that you just have to knit, if you understand. So I think that's it for knitting, which means we're on to spinning. Because I was itching to do some spinning, and I couldn't decide which one to do first. So I did 2 lots of spinning. I've done, and they're both set aside for shawls. Now, this is the first. This was a custom bat that I ordered from Frost Yarn. on Instagram. She's on Etsy as Frost Yarn as well, and it's this red and white, and it's got silver in it. It's not going to show up very well. Silver gradient bat with lots of sparkles in it. Lots of sparkles, lots of fire star, just trilobal nylon. I've just opened it out, and it goes from this dark winey red through like a bright red, through a silvery grey, through to a white, and it's got lots of sparkle stuff in it. And I think I'm going to do the Age of Brass and Steam shawl with this one. Not sure, but I think. But I wear more red things in the winter, so maybe I should knit a cowl, because I'm more likely to wear a cowl than a shawl, like a shawlet, in the winter. I'm not sure. I'll have to think on that. But it's come out as kind of a heavy DK weight. Obviously it's different thicknesses in different places, but on average I would say it's about a DK, a little bit heavier, but not by much. And I'm really pleased with it. It's lovely. It's just so sparkly. I have got another one that I ordered at the same time, and it is green, silver and white, and that's just, oh, it's so pretty. I need to spin that yet. So this is my first spin recently. There we go. And it's not really showing up how sparkly this is. You get a little bit when the light's shining, but sparkle, sparkle. But it is, and it's more shiny than sparkly. I didn't want tons of Angelina. I like Angelina, but I wanted it more shiny. So it's, most of its shine actually comes from the nylon, the fire star that's in it. So it's much more subtle than something that's really, really, I've got some really sparkly yarns, and this is more subtly sparkly, more shiny than sparkly. So that would be my first spin. And like it says, that's Frost Yarn, and she does amazing, amazing, most sparkly, rainbow, shiny bats you've ever seen. Some of them, they just look like, oh, like the inside of a rainbow geode. They're just so sparkly. They're just amazing. Oops, rustly packets. And my second spin was this, and this is gorgeous. This is, oh, it's like a fairy princess. I don't know whether to call this my fairy princess yarn or whether to call it my Rapunzel from Tangled yarn, because it is just all shades of pink and lavender and burgundy and a little bit of like a salmony pink. It is gorgeous, and it's really shiny. It's got, I'm trying to remember what this is. I have the tag for this. This is by, the fibres from created by LCB over in America, and I got these as part of my Christmas box, or this is part of my Christmas box, and this is a repeatable colourway. It's called Briar Rose, and I got 326 yards when I spun this up. And again, this is definitely a DK weight, and it's a 50% 22 micron Polworth and 50% tencel, and tencel I think is now my new favourite vegetable fibre. It is so shiny, this thing. It's like, I don't know, it's like a pink pearl. It says it's not gonna, I don't know if I can catch the light, it looks just shiny, shiny. It is truly beautiful, and this is definitely going to be a shawlet. I haven't decided specifically on the pattern for this one yet. It'll be fairly plain, probably. It will not be elaborate because I want to be able to show the transitions in the colours. So what I've done is I kept her colourway, the colour design, as true as possible. So you can see lots of separate colours in there, but at the same time there's lots of, when the colours have plied, let me just cover my face up. When the colours have plied, they've plied against each other in places too. So what I've done was, the way it's been dyed is, it's been folded in half, and then each colour like that. So the colour's repeated, it goes to the middle and then back out. So I've pulled it in half and just spun each ply end to end. But of course you don't get it perfect, so you get lots of crossover in the yarn. So you'll get a lot of the burgundy will ply on the burgundy, but at the same time your burgundy will ply on the next colour in the fibre. So it's got a really nice transitions going on there. They're really bonny. So it's going to be like a fairy princess shawlet, Rapunzel shawl, a tangled shawl, something like that. And I want to keep a lot of that colour showing. I don't want it to get muddied up too much. So again, it'll be a fairly simple shawl, but I'm not sure which one yet. So that would be my final Fibre finished object, my second spinning object. So, plans for the future. Well, I have that cardigan to finish. Obviously, I've got my whips. I'm planning on doing the Orland cardigan. Already touched on that subject too. I have my fern leaf to get back to. I bought a lot of yarn in the last few months. I don't usually buy a lot of yarn. I dye a lot of yarn and to sell, I sell a lot of yarns, but I don't actually buy a lot for myself because I'm kind of limited on knitting time, and I have too many hobbies. I like to spin, I like to knit, I like to cross stitch. I haven't cross stitched in ages, and I haven't a cross stitch which has got a big one with a fox on it, and I haven't touched it in over a year. I want to get it finished because it's mostly done, you know, it's probably 3/4 done. So I cross stitch, I cook from scratch, I sew, I do all sorts. So trying to fit everything in is a real struggle. So I don't buy a lot of yarn because I buy the odd bit, but then I have a lot in my stash from that I pick up from random places, like or I used to get the bits from the thrift shop, from the charity shop, and things like that. So fitting everything in is a real struggle, but I did buy a lot of yarn recently that was on offer. It was like there was a, I don't know, 30% off, something like that, on all the drops yarns. And the drops yarns are really good value. They're not excellent quality, but they're really good value. But they work really well. It's the 100% wool and all that malarkey. So I bought a lot because I have a lot of projects I want to do. It'll probably take me a couple of years to do them, but I have a lot of projects that are on my queue, on my Ravelry queue, which reminds me, I'm Mad Mel everywhere. Instagram, Ravelry, the whole lot. And on my Ravelry queue, I have like 90 something things on my queue, and most of them I actually have the yarn for now. So they're not all big things, it's like little things, like colourwork mittens, which are all the thing at the moment. I think lots of people are going to get mittens for Christmas, I think. And so I bought a lot of yarn for all these projects, on a lot of the projects. So I want to do some colourwork mittens, and I am going to do the Flora mittens by Skein Deer, and her gingerbread spice latte ones as well. And there's some other ones by other designers. There's the Taxus mittens I really want to do, and there's this one that's got mushrooms on, out of a book that I have at home. And I've got the yarns for these, so colourwork mittens are in the near future. I have shawls to knit, I have sweaters to knit. Like I say, I have the Orland, but I also have, I want to do the Wintersol itself as well, not just as a combination with the Orland, but for that I need to spin up a load of North Ronaldsay fleece that I have, in the loft and has been sitting up there for a while in different shades of grey. So if I get the pattern, I'm going to use 3 different shades of grey. So the body and the yoke and the designy bit will all be different shades of grey. So my mid grey will be in the body, and the palest stuff, which is practically white, will be in the yoke, and then the darkest stuff that I can find will be done for the detailing. But that's a lot of spinning, and the North Ronaldsay is fleeces, which means combing and carding before spinning, and that's a big project. So I don't know when. It'll probably be the winter before I get, or certainly towards the winter before I even start that. So I have lots of projects in mind, lots of knitting, and I still have my green custom back to spin up. I still have some more fibre I got from Created by LCB to spin up, and lots of little projects like that. So that's all my fibre plans. Also, I still have to finish top stitching a patchwork quilt for my in-laws. So hopefully I want to get that done this week if possible. Just some simple top stitching, because I've just done what's called a jelly roll race quilt, which is just lines with diagonals. It's really simple. So I'm just going to put some little bits of stitching where the diagonals are. Top stitching, probably. I quite like top stitching on quilting. So I have that to do. I also want to knit some skirts. No, I don't want to knit skirts. I want to sew some skirts. I have a case with fabrics put aside in here to knit some, so I'm saying it again, to sew some skirts for the summer when we have summer. So I need to do that. And yeah, lots and lots of things going on. This is my husband, he's actually been really quiet. I think he's built like cementing and stuff at the moment. He was using a grinder earlier, so it was really loud. We are still renovating. I don't actually have a kitchen properly yet. I haven't had hot running water in my kitchen since we moved up, so 8.5 years ago. It's a little frustrating. Hopefully not too long. So we're renovating. So that's see, it's things like that take up all the time. It's helping out with this and doing a bit of that and planting onions and things like that. So lots of things that have to be done. Yeah, gobbledygook. Vikings. Oh my god, my sister recommended us watching Vikings ages ago, and we watched the first episode and it wasn't what I expected, and for some reason we weren't fussed, which is really weird because we like all the Game of Thrones and Walking Dead, and we tend to watch series on their own. We don't have proper TV, so we tend to just watch a series, and we put it aside. We didn't bother, and then decided we'd give it another go a few weeks back, and we're now just into season 3. And so I can't believe we waited this long to watch it. Very weird, because it's really good. Really enjoying it. It's interesting because Orkney's a funny place. It's off the north coast of Scotland, and it's made up of a group of islands, and we're on the main part, mainland Orkney, which is kind of a weird shape. You have a big chunk here and a big chunk there, and they're like joined in the middle by one town, and it's like maybe 2 miles across. There's a little bit, a big bit, little joint. And then you have some smaller islands that are joined to one part by what's called the Churchill barriers, which are not barriers at all. They're like causeways. But you've also got other islands dotted about, especially up above the mainland of Orkney. We're on the mainland, the main big island. But even so, it only takes to go from the very tippiest bit here to the very tippiest at the bottom of the ones that are joined by causeways. It takes an hour. It's not very long at all. But although Orkney's off the coast of Scotland, it hasn't got much in the way of Scottish culture. It's very strange. It's more Scandinavian. Orkney and Shetland were inhabited by the Vikings. and there's lots of Viking stuff around, lots of Viking settlements and lots of Viking influences. Lots of the place names are very Norse, not Scottish. There's some Scottish elements, but the Scots, before the Vikings came to Orkney, we had Picts. We didn't have Celts. We just had Picts, and the Pictish. Before that, we've got Stone Age, Bronze Age, all that. So there's lots of Bronze Age stuff. You've got the Ring of Brodgar, you've got Stenness, you've got the Ness of Brodgar, World Heritage sites that are just amazing, amazing sites. The Ness of Brodgar and all that area is old. They've found out now it's older than Stonehenge. Basically, they went from here to Stonehenge. It's an amazing thing. But when the Vikings came over, the Celts never made it to Orkney. Well, there's little Celtic elements, but it wasn't like Scotland. And the Vikings came, and Orkney was owned by Norway until the 1700s, and it was given to Britain, I guess, as part of a dowry. I can't remember exactly who married who, but it was given back to Britain. But up until the 1700s, it was still owned by Norway. So it has a very big Norse culture. So you look around and there's this place names and certain things they're just not Scottish. We've got things like pipe bands and tartan and stuff like that, but it's not the same as in Scotland, not at all, completely different. And we have our cathedral, for example, the cathedral in the centre of Kirkwall is the St Magnus Cathedral. St Magnus was an earl, I believe, from Denmark. Couldn't swear on this, but I think he was from Denmark. He wasn't Norwegian. I think he was from Denmark. And he was martyred on one of the smaller islands. I keep looking over there because it's over in that direction. One of the smaller islands of Orkney, one of the littler ones. And he was murdered by his cousin. They'd been co-ruling Orkney and decided that one of them had to have it eventually, and Magnus apparently gave himself up and said, fine, you have it, and his cousin, who I don't remember the name of, basically cut off his head and killed him. So St Magnus his bones are incarcerated in the walls of St Magnus. There's a piece where they actually took a stone, they found his bones. It's in the cathedral, and it is the St Magnus Cathedral. There's lots of things like that. So Orkney's a funny place. I love it here, and it's unlike anywhere else I've ever been. So if you go to Scandinavia, everything's very Scandinavian, obviously, because if you go to Scotland, everything's very Scottish. But Orkney is this like oddball. It's kind of a bit of Scottish, mostly Norse, strange, and it has its own dialect, very strong dialect, and it's certain people, depending on which island you come from, they can have that bit of a Scandinavian lilt, which if you're Scandinavian you probably don't know what I mean, but if you're like British and you've watched something where people are talking Scandinavian, sometimes you get that bit of a lilt, kind of a raising pitch at the end of a sentence. Sometimes you get that, but in an Orcadian dialect, speaking English, it's like it says, it's a very mixed place. It's very strange. Definitely worth a visit. Anybody wants to come to Orkney, definitely should come to Orkney. If you like anything to do with stones, archaeology, stones, lots and lots of stone in Orkney. It doesn't have many trees. Lots of stone, lots of, you can barely dig up a hole in your garden. You go, oh look, I found a burial tomb. It kind of is a bit like that. You see geophys about everywhere. We've got the dowsing people out everywhere. Every time somebody wants to dig a hole in the garden, it's like, so do I really want to dig a hole? If I find something, I have to call in the archaeologists. It kind of is a bit like that. Lots of people have things in their garden that you wouldn't normally have in a garden. Maybe it's because it's so small. and you're going to have people living on it for a long time, you're going to get stuff buried everywhere, really. It's kind of a bit like that. So yeah, if you're interested in archaeology, come to Orkney. If you have Orkney roots, come to Orkney, go to the archive. The archives are amazing up here. If you are interested in the Norse influx to the UK, Orkney's a great place for it. We have lots of records, lots of things that weren't destroyed in other parts of the country survived up here, which is really interesting. So yeah, that's what I've just invited everybody to Orkney. I've done my my touristy bit now. Yeah, I've gone off on a weird tangent, and this is going to get really, really long, so I do apologise. I'm trying to go as fast as I can without talking 100 to the dozen, which I tend to do if I get on a subject. So I do apologise if I'm talking a little too quickly. Catch your breath. I think I'm going to leave it at that, because it's really nice and sunny outside. I'm looking out the window and I've seen my husband walk past a couple of times. I'm like, oh, it's so nice out there. We don't get that many warm days in Orkney before middle of June. We get 2 seasons. No, we don't get 2 seasons. That's a lie. We do get 4 seasons, but they're strange. We have our summer season sort of starts June-ish, middle of June, and we'll run through to middle of August, 2 months. But we rarely get above 20 Celsius, which is 70 Fahrenheit. Sometimes it'll creep up to maybe 23 Celsius. So what's that? 46, 76 Fahrenheit. Pushing the boat out. So that's it in the summer. We don't get much rain in July. July is pretty dry. July will be dry, and August will be wet. It'll be mild, but it'll be damp. And then when September comes around, the winds start, and we get strong winds off and on all through September, October, November, December, January, February, March, all the way through to May. We had strong winds here last week one day, and we're into May now. Obviously there's no leaves on our trees yet, because that's what the winter's like here, and it gets very wet and very windy, and but then we get like no rain in July, so we don't get much snow. We've had maybe a handful of days where we've had snow this winter, and it never got above 2 inches on its heaviest day here, and it doesn't stay for long. The first 2 winters we had up here, we had a lot of snow, but it was really unusual. The second year, in fact, we had 3-foot drifts of snow in the garden, which is really weird up here, but we haven't had anything since. It's been a dusting the odd day, it melts, dusting a couple of weeks later, it melts, that sort of thing. Frosts, we've had quite a few frosts this spring, which we don't normally have. We only have, again, count on one hand how many frosts. That's my husband walking past outside and creaking the floor. We have half a dozen a year maybe. But to have this lovely weather outside in May is lovely. So I'm going to go and enjoy it, and I'm going to get some ice creams out to warm up a little bit and sit out in the courtyard and enjoy my ice cream. And then I'm not sure what I'm doing this afternoon, but yeah. So thank you for watching, and I will catch you again next time. Bye bye.